I am sure that I'm pretty sure that that was part of their decision. I think that the primary basis of them asking me or sending me away to school was to save my life, naturally, because I was headed for destruction there in Detroit with the things I was beginning to do. I had become of age, 15 years old, something like that. And like most 15 years old, you can hardly tell them what to do. And there was a tremendous disconnect and replacement of me and my view of the world when my mother passed, because my mother was my only disciplinarian. My mother was the only one that I really, truly loved and honored and respected and adhered to any demand or command that she issued. And that submission was strictly because of love. It was not fear. My mother was not a disciplinarian of that nature. I just loved my mother. My mother showed me a great deal of love. And I did not have that same connect with my brother's wife in Detroit. That was one of the main reasons. She was having a difficult time with me because I was openly rebellious against things that she said and did. And I always kind of let her know that you're not my mother. You're just my sister-in-law. You're not my mother. And apparently she didn't want that role. She wanted to be more of a mother or wanted me to submit more.
Understood.
So as far as development is into being a black man, I don't really think that was primary. Also, my grandfather was Caucasian, so I don't think they were trying to save my life is what they were doing. They were trying to save my life, not necessarily trying to instill in me a precedence of color line or dignity. I did not lack dignity, and we did not lack dignity. It was really just trying to say she may wanted to get rid of me because I was causing a problem for her.
Indeed.
I really want to give them the credit, the benefit of trying to give me some structure and save my life.
So tell me, Eugene, after you were aware that whether you really wanted to or not, you were going to the academy, what did you compress, brother, in those few days before you physically went? Did they show you the materials that were required? And I remember receiving a list in my particular instance well ahead of the time that I actually left Philadelphia to go to the academy, things that I needed to bring with me, the Foot Locker and all the rest of those things. Did they show that information to you, or did they simply tell you what you needed to do?
Okay, now, Mr. Van, that is somewhat vague. I don't really remember them showing me any documentation as to. I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea what the school. Now, I vividly remember this. I did not have any photographs of the school or anything such as that, curriculum, programs, or anything. I did not know anything about that. I do have vague memories of the Foot Locker and requirements of things that we were supposed to take with us. But this was sort of. I'm really trying to stress this. This was somewhat sealed by them.
I see.
And thank God that I was complicit in agreeing with them to go because they wanted me to leave and I wanted to leave.
Understood.
So I believe with a combination of that, it worked out well.
Which leads me to my next question, because I don't want to forget this. During the 1960s, 1960, 1959, especially 1961, that was the beginning of the civil rights era in America.
Yes.
And also the South was verboten as far as many northern blacks were concerned. They did tell you that you were going to the South, and how did you feel about that?
Okay, I want to think that the fact that I already had experienced segregation in the South in Arkansas was not such a big obstacle. And of course, now let's say this. I also want to stress that I believe it was a mindset I was already still in a mindset which perhaps was indicative of many blacks during that time, which was this, is that my parents didn't teach me anything about segregation. My parents didn't teach me that Caucasians were my enemy. I was raised up with Jesus Christ in my heart and love. And we didn't need anything. We were rather affluent even within our neighborhood. So the transition from West Helena via Detroit to Virginia was nilled. I was aware that racism exists. Don't get me wrong, but it was not so much levied on hatred. It was levied on disparity as far as economics was concerned, as far as education was concerned, opportunities. So that was what we were taught: go to school, get you an education, so you can break this gap, or rather, so you can fill in this gap. Our stresses, what we were stressed was get an education, learn your trade. Now that's the downside about it, I think, during that time, because there weren't any blacks. My brother was a dentist. Blacks were in the trades. My father was a plumber and a carpenter. My mother worked at Bobby Brooks as a seamstress. But during that time, there weren't any positions that blacks were filling as far as in government, mayors of cities or towns or things such as that.
Indeed.
Very little impact. But so we went from trades into professional jobs and opportunities. So as far as segregation and being privy to racial, I guess, racial conflicts and things such as that, I never ever saw that. I never saw that. I never saw anyone hanging from a tree. We were aware of the possibilities that these things do occur, that they did happen, and that they could occur. But we were basically taught to educate ourselves. Our view in life was not so much on racism.
Let me ask you this question, Eugene.
Yes, sir.
Did you know anyone at the academy in the class that you entered as a sophomore?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
So you were going to a completely new experience, not knowing anyone there.
Exactly. I was not introduced to anyone in Detroit who was a current student or cadet at St. Emma. And again, I don't even know how my family found out about St. Emma.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you how it probably happened, and this will be for the benefit of the listening audience also. The head of the academy, Epic J. Figueroa, Father Figueroa, was from Detroit. Figueroa was from Detroit. He was very influential throughout Detroit, particularly in the African American community. And for all intents and purposes, Father Figueroa was the only black priest that I met for most of my life until I got much older. So he was a powerhouse within the Catholic religion. He was educated, he was dynamic, he was a wonderful administrator, and he was upwardly mobile. He knew everybody that there was to know of any influence, whether it be in law enforcement, in finance, in government, in and around the city of Detroit. So if your family, your brother and your auntie were moving in those circles, and I'm assuming that they have been exposed to Father Figueroa and Father Figueroa's graduates and his influence, and they wanted to get some of that and rub it off on you. And so that serves very much to your tribute. However, I'm just amazed, and I just have to really say it. I had, Eugene, a year as an 8th grader to prepare for going to St. Emma Military Academy. Emotionally, I had I did.
You were blessed, son. You were blessed.
That's the thing that I'm saying. And so I'm sitting here flabbergasted at the idea that within a very compressed period of time, you were uprooted and found yourself in St. Emma Military Academy. And the reason why I am flabbergasted about it is because the experience as the listeners will find out later in future podcasts that we record concerning the academy, the experience at St. Emma Military Academy was diametrically opposed to anything a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-older would have been exposed to in the inner city. It was diametrically opposed. Everything that was going on inside of high schools and on the street corners throughout America at that time never manifested itself at the academy. We had so much structure. And so I think my question is, once you got to the academy, once you got there, the first few days, how did you manage?
You know, I'll have to say this. I can go back to the moment in time when they asked me would I be interested in going away to school. I was elated because there was a certain amount of freedom that I was going to experience by leaving the environment that I was living in. And you may notice I'm putting emphasis on that. We'll save discussion for that at some other point in time.
Indeed.
It was almost traumatic as I got older, living in that house that I was living in with my brother there. Relationships really were having a problem, but there was a certain when I arrived on that campus, I was excited. I was excited to be away from what I had been experiencing. I saw opportunities for freedom.
Wow.
I saw opportunities for movement. I saw opportunities for latitude, and not really even know, not even having any idea what I was actually going into. But I knew that I was able to receive it, and I knew that I was going to be able to deal with it, and I knew that I was able to survive it because I was a survivor. I've always been a survivor, and when my mother died, I became a survivor and determined to guide myself accordingly with the instructions that she had been giving me of how I need to lead and live my life. So